markets look over troughs. And so keep in mind, we've had a lot of concern and talk about Fed tightening for almost a year. It really started last June, where there was concern that the Fed was going to have to tighten because inflation was starting to lift its ugly head. And so we had discussion about tightening all the way through last summer and into last fall. And obviously until, Powell got religion in January, he was talking about transitory inflation. But there was always concern on Wall Street that the Fed was ultimately going to have to deal with that inflation and tighten. So that's been a concern for the markets for the last 12 months. If by the time we get to the July Fed meeting, the economy is weak enough that the Fed can, says maybe we need to pause. We don't want to, create a hard landing. Let's at least sit quiet for this meeting, or next, after we make this hike, let's not do anything for the next couple months. If they do that, that switches a very stiff headwind that's been holding the market down, certainly this year, into a tailwind. It doesn't mean the Fed's all of a sudden going from QT to QE. It doesn't mean the Fed's all of a sudden going to cut rates. But just sitting on their hands and saying, okay, we're going to watch for a little while to see what we do next, that will be a big switch from, oh my God, the Fed's just starting tightening and there's a lot of tightening to come, right? So I think it's mostly a change in mindset. And keep in mind, this market move isn't going to wait for the Fed. The bond market led on the tightening side, right? They started tightening in early January, and rates went up all through the first 5 months, 4.5 months. I think the same is true here, where I expect the 10-year to drop below 250, maybe even below 2.25 in the next 2 or 3 months. So the rates are going to be coming down before the Fed does anything. And that's what if you've followed me at all, you've seen me talk about the street narrative, the street tightening narrative. That's what I mean by that. Market expectations will turn before the Fed turn. And I did put out a tweet this week with that forecast of saying, I think we're at or near a peak in oil, and that whether it turns, today, tomorrow, or whether it's still, a couple weeks out, we're pretty close to the top in oil for the cycle, and that it will fall eventually to $20 in the global bust next year. Now, of course, people hear peaking oil and see a $20 forecast, and they think I'm talking about $20 in the next 3 months. I'm not. It will gravitate to that level, with most of the damage done to the oil price happening probably beginning late this year and all through next year. So, but I do think we're at a peak and could be under $100 during the next few months. And simple reason for it is that I'm forecasting first a recession to start. We may be in it now, or we're getting closer to it. As I said, demand's falling, et cetera, inventory corrections coming. So the first thing is we're heading for recession this year. I think that's going to morph into a global bust next year. And global bust, by my definition, when I say bust, and it's another term I used before anybody else was using it, and now it's everywhere. But my definition of a global bust is the worst global downturn in the post-World War II era. So essentially the worst global downturn since the Great Depression. So worse than 2008-9, and accompanied by, I think, the largest financial crisis in history. So I'm talking about something worse than 2008-9 for sure. And I think it's that demand destruction that comes from, again, the terms get thrown around and people hear global bust and they may think he's talking about another recession or whatever. It's something that's going to really hit demand hard because, across the board in all kinds of industries and sectors, we're going to have a very bad economy, and it's going to hit demand, not just consumer demand. It's demand at the industrial level. They use a lot of oil. They're not going to be needing nearly as much oil if they're not producing at that level. It's all the way across the board globally. demand's going to be down sharply, and I think supply could follow. There's been tight supply, but I think you could see some of that eased up too. But I don't need that. I'm really looking at the demand side. So, like I said, it's not like that all has to happen this summer. It's really more the bulk of the decline, let's say from $80 to $30 or $70 to $30, will happen during next year's, the worst of the economy.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information. And it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
I have bad news for you. If you're not rich by now, you're screwed. And if you're in debt, you're even double screwed. How so, you might wonder? Well, the sad truth is that you're working your whole life to make someone else rich. The mega corporations, the banks, the politicians, everyone is getting richer. They get your money. And what is even worse, they get your time, they get your life. You are not even in a rat race, you're in a financial prison. But what could a solution for you look like? Honestly, I don't know, but I know what a solution for me would look like. It's very simple. I use whatever money I have and I multiply it with 1,000. This could make my life much easier and probably yours as well. If you have $1,000 available and multiply this with 1,000, I believe that this could solve some financial issue for the one or the other. Of course, if you're ugly, you would have to multiply it with much more than 1,000. My name is Marco Stan, and this is what I decided to do. I decided to 1000x my money. This is not a joke. I know what you may be thinking. What is this guy talking about? How should this work? This is not possible. Well, I made a detailed video where I laid out my plan. And some clever folks might even want to look at this plan and copy it and do exactly what I do. This is just a little hint on the side. You have two options. You leave, you forget what you have seen. You do whatever you're doing and you hope that somehow you get some other results. Good luck with that. Or you click the link below the video. You enter your email address because I'm not showing this to everybody. You at least watch my video on how I plan to 1000x my money. The choice is yours. Make the right choice. Join me. See what a different future you could have. See at least how I intend, how I plan to do the 1000x. So click on the link below, enter your email address, and I see you on the other side. Your Marco Stan.